This is a value calculator for the fictitious cart company. They're a software as a service provider that helps retail websites retarget people who abandon their shopping carts to encourage them to complete the sale. This value calculator allows CartCo's sales team to demonstrate to a prospect the potential return on investment from implementing CartCo's technology. By changing the assumptions behind the model, CartCo can tailor the ROI model to fit the prospect's business. For example, we can reduce the number of quarterly page views and the cart to purchase conversion. As we do this, the numbers on the main view change, and we can explore these changes further by switching between multiple chart views. So let's look at how we created this model using DecisionPoint, a fast dashboard creation tool that allows non-programmers to create dashboard apps and value calculators. Creating a value calculator is a 4-step process. Step 1 is to pull in our defaults and lookup data from Excel. Here we have defaults for our assumptions in one worksheet and the time periods we want to model, quarters 1 to 4, in a second sheet. We import this data into the DecisionPoint Designer by specifying the block of data we want to bring in. After loading both our defaults and the lookup values for the model, we move on to step 2. Here we will set up our input controls and map these onto our default values. We start with a blank canvas in DecisionPoint. Before running any input controls, we want to choose our look and feel. DecisionPoint offers a number of themes out of the box, but here we're going to work with a custom theme that uses CartCo's branding. Typically, we set up a custom theme for customers as part of their onboarding process. Next, we add a pop-up dialog box where we're going to drop in our input controls. We start by adding a text control for the number of page views, and we give it a friendly name for when we reference it in formulas later. We populate its initial value from the defaults dataset, which we just loaded in from Excel. We do this using a lookup function, and this is similar to doing a lookup in Excel. This is just one of many functions that DecisionPoint supports in its expressions. We can just hard code these defaults to save a little time, but one advantage of driving them from our dataset is that later we can add a reset button into our model to return everything to the starting point. So next we can drag on a spinner to set a quarterly growth rate for our page views. Again, we can populate the initial value from our defaults dataset. We can also add labels and relevant images. Here, using one of the standard icons included with DecisionPoint. And all of this helps to provide descriptive help to the end user. We then add the remaining input controls in the same way and add additional labels as required to ensure the dialog is easy to use and intuitive. Finally, we add a button, label it close, and set its behaviour to hide the assumptions dialog when the button is pressed. We're now ready to move on to step 3, where we create the calculator model. We currently have one column in our model dataset for quarters. To extend our model, first we're going to create a custom column for each of our input values. We start by creating a custom column for page views. Initially we set this to read the value of the page view's input text box. We also set a display format for this column, and we tell DecisionPoint to sum the page views up when we show them at a summary level. So in this case, this would add up all the quarterly page views to show us the total page views for the year. In the same way, we can add a custom column for conversion to cart. Here we don't want to sum up the quarterly conversions, as it doesn't make sense, because if our quarterly conversion rate is 20%, summing these up would show the annual conversion rate as being 80%, and we don't want this. So to prevent this, we ensure the aggregation is set to none. To check how our model is evolving, we add a temporary dialog and drop a table into here where we can visualise the column values. So here we can see page views for the quarter and totaled for the year, and a conversion rate just showing per quarter as we specified. To add in the growth rate, we need to modify our formula. And it's the same process we would use in Excel, using the power function to multiply 1 plus our growth rate to the power of the current quarter minus 1. With growth rate added into our formula, we can see page views increasing on a quarterly basis by viewing our temporary dialog. Once we've added custom columns for all our input values, we can move on to create the calculations that are at the heart of our model. We start by creating a custom column for cart creations. This is simply defined as page views multiplied by the conversion to cart rate. Again, we can add a display format, and because we can add up our quarterly cart creations to get an annual figure, we set the aggregation type to sum. Once we've added in all of the calculations we require, we move on to step 4, the final part of creating this calculator, where we lay out and present the visuals. We're going to start by going back to the main canvas and dragging on a big number component. We map this to our model dataset, and we're going to choose to display total revenue. After adding further big numbers for other key values we want to highlight, we drop in a bar chart. We map the chart to our model dataset and choose to display quarter, total revenue, and revenue variance. To switch between multiple charts, we can add in a view stack, which allows us to move between different tab views of our data. We then paste our chart back into each tab view, changing the columns we require in each view. To switch between views, we can overlay a transparent button over our big numbers. We set the behaviour of the button to display the desired tab. Once we've done this for all the tabs, we can add in some additional labels and graphical elements to maximise the visual appeal of our calculator. Next, we want to show a nice title that includes the customer name and the total return on investment. We can calculate the return on investment using a dashboard expression. We can then reference this expression along with the customer name, which was defined using a text field on the assumptions dialog, and include both of these in our title label. We can also apply rich text formatting to this label to show the company name and the return on investment in bold. Finally, we add buttons and set behaviours to open the assumptions dialog and to reset the model. Resetting the model is achieved by refreshing the defaults dataset, which then sets all the input controls back to their initial value. Once we're happy with our finished dashboard, we can publish it to the DecisionPoint platform and share it. We can email the URL, we can embed the calculator in a website, we can even allow our salespeople to access the calculator on a mobile device when they're offline. To find out more, request a demo of DecisionPoint today.